So welcome to the channel. In today's episode, I'm going to show you how to build one of these Carpenter bee traps right here, and we're going to discuss some things that I have found out. Almost 1 year ago, I made a video building some of these traps and putting them out, and my success rate was not very good on catching Carpenter bees. By the way, I'm going to show you how destructive they are and what I've been battling. That video just recently started gaining a lot of attention, so it kind of piqued my interest to make a second follow-up video with some stuff that I have learned to increase my catch rate. And again, I'm going to show you how to build one of these, but let me show you some damage I'm dealing with right now. And we're down here at my deer blind right here where I do a little bit of hunting, and we're going to put a couple of these traps up right here because I've got a problem going on. So for those of y'all that don't know what a Carpenter bee is, it kind of looks like a bumblebee, but they're a little different if you look at them up close. But what they like to do is go bore into wood just like this. By the way, this is pressure treat lumber right here. The new stuff that, well, just doesn't work. It's horrible. The new safe stuff, so to speak. It's so safe that bugs will chew right into it. So they'll bore little holes just like this. This is typically what you'll see on wooden structures. They burrow all up in here, lay larvae, and then what causes all this damage right here, all this structural damage, is a woodpecker. They'll come along, see the hole, know that there's a big fat juicy larva in there, and they'll start tearing your wood completely apart. So it got so bad last year I had to rebuild a lot of my stairs. This is all pressure treated lumber as well, but again, it just doesn't work. So the bees would burrow up in underneath, woodpeckers would come and destroy the top side of this, and some of these stair treads were so bad I thought I was going to fall right through them. So we're going to show you how to make one of these in a second, but here's the thought process behind this. I have multiple holes drilled in this 4x4 block of wood that go up at an angle to a big center hole. And then there's a hole drilled in a lid of a mason jar to where they can actually climb down in the glass. And once they climb down in there, a lot of times they can't figure out how to get back out. Then you can come unscrew it and dump them if you catch enough of them. That's where I was actually messing up last year. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. So let me go ahead and hang a couple of these out here on these posts and try to start catching some of these destructive insects. So one area where I was having a major problem, and still am, with Carpenter bees is out here underneath my pole barn. Anywhere you have exposed wood like this, they love to come to it. So I've put quite a few of these homemade traps up out here on post everywhere. I have 6 or 8 out here right now, and I have learned a few things along the way. Let me show you something right here. So if you look up in there, I'm starting to load up on Carpenter bees. And if you look up there, you'll see holes in the lumber where they were drilling in. So that's the first tip I can give you. Try to put your traps near where there's already some activity. So one of the first tips I can give you, see how spider webs love building up on the outside and in the holes of these traps. Make sure you can access these traps because you're going to have to occasionally clean those holes out. Sometimes there could be dirt dauber in there. What I typically find is spider webs all the way inside of there. So you can take the trap down and blow those out. All right, so the second biggest tip I can give you, what increased my catch rate. When I first put these up, nothing was happening. And I've eventually finally caught 1 or 2, and I did a very foolish thing. Unscrewed the jar, dumped the bees out. Because in my mind, hey, if bees see other dead bees in there, well, they're not gonna wanna go flying in there, right? Exact opposite. Apparently, whenever you leave a jar partially full of dead bees like this, they must release a pheromone or something else. So along comes the other bee, they sense that, smell it, whatever it is they do, and they want to get in there to where the other bees are. So that's the biggest tip I can give you. Leave your jar partially full. Now if it starts filling halfway full and all, like this one has, I'll unscrew it and dump out, but always leave some bees in there. Ever since I've started doing that, I've been catching a lot more bees. That jar over there, is hard to see, is about almost a quarter of the way full of bees right now. All right, so the next tip that I can give you, Bifin, which is an excellent spray to kill almost all kinds of bugs. I started spraying the structure that we just come from out there where I hung the other 2 traps, all underneath with Bifin. And well, guess what? I'm not really seeing the bees out there anymore, and I'm not seeing any new chewing activity, but I still wanted to put traps up anyways. So I use an oil-based Bifin spray called Bifin XTS. You used to be able to buy it on Amazon. You can't anymore. But now if you'll go to like farmer feed and seed stores, you can still find it there. But they make Bifin IT, which is a white spray that a lot of pest control companies use. It does not work very well outside, but the Bifin XTS is is oil-based and will actually stick to the wood. So if you're dealing with a major bee problem, try spraying underneath side with that. But I've got another tip as well if you can't find the bifen. So if you look on the underneath side of my porch here, we just built this house. We finished building it about a year ago. And the porch was bare wood for quite a while. And I started getting, I doubt you can see it with this little camera, started getting carpenter bees chewing into my porch ceiling. So I wondered if I would spray paint it, which I wanted to do to make it look good as well, if that would stop the bees. A lot of people told me paint will not stop bees. They will chew right through it. You're wasting your time. Well, I painted the ceiling because, again, we wanted to do that. And over a year now, I have not noticed one single new chew mark. These bees have not once chewed through this paint. It absolutely does work. It works just as well as hosing down wood with all that bifen. So painting and bifen, I can say from experience, those two things are working for me. Let's go build a trap. I've already told you, you're gonna have to occasionally check them, get spider webs and other stuff out of them, or the bees will quit using them. Always leave bees in your trap. That's the biggest tip of all in this video. That greatly increases my catch rate. And some people say be very precise with the angle of the holes that you drill in. I can't really verify that one right now. So let me show you how to build one of these, and it may help you out with the problem that you're having. All right, so now that we have a block of wood that's about 4 inches long, and it's just a 4x4 block of wood, so 3.5 by 3.5, 4 inches tall. You don't have to be precise. I am drilling a hole right down into the center of this. And you don't want to drill that hole all the way through, because remember, we want to trap the bees and force them back down. So that's a 3/4 of an inch hole that I drilled about 3 inches deep. I'll then take a 1/2 inch drill bit. That seems to be the perfect size for an entrance hole. And now that we're, well, close to the center, I'm a little off there, we're gonna come in on 3 sides, because I like to mount mine to a post, so there's no point in drilling a hole on a 4 side. If you're gonna hang this from a string, drill 4 holes all the way around. So we're gonna start toward the bottom and go in at about a 45-degree angle, making for sure that we run into that hole. We're trying to create a pathway for them to go up and drop down into the hole. Again, do that on 3 different sides. All right, so now you're gonna be left with something that looks like this right here. 3 different ways to go in, up at that 45-degree angle, and they can come out of that center hole right there. Now the problem is, whenever you drill in like this, there is wood shards and pieces and splinters everywhere in there. All that has to be cleaned out. So I'm gonna go blow this out with some compressed air and make for sure that there's a free flowing path in and drop down into the jar. Otherwise, if you have splinters all in the way, the bees are never gonna make it to the jar. This is worth doing every spring too, or just before spring, whenever the bees are typically gonna fly around and lay their larvae. That's the time of year they do it. Go ahead and take your traps down early, blow all the spider webs and other stuff out of them, hang them right back up. So before we mount anything on the bottom, now's the time to put some sort of hanger in. I like to use cheap old fencing staples because I have a bunch of them and you can pick them up dirt cheap. And I'll just nail one right into the top, more toward the back side. And I use this as my hanger. And I want to make sure I do it on the side that does not have the hole, because that's the side I like to mount near a post. All right, that's all it takes. Now we can run a nail or a screw right through that. All right, so here's how we attach the jar. Take a canning lid that fits the size ring for the jar that you have. Here's an old rusty one that I have. Drop the lid down in there. Then we're going to put that directly over this large center hole in the bottom. And you can screw or nail the lid down to hold it in place. Now I like to use a step bit for this process, but you could use that same 3/4 bit that I used earlier. But we have to open that hole back up, and this will go right down through the metal. And we've opened the hole right back up perfectly down into the wood. So let me blow this out one more time, make sure we don't have any metal shards in there. Now you can take an old glass jar, I like the pint size, screw it into the lid, go hang this you're ready to go. Now here's another tip. If you already have a jar somewhere with dead bees in it, just like I do, go take some out of that jar, pour right into here to go ahead and get that scent going and that attraction for more bees. Hanging a jar straight like this will eventually catch them, but it's a much slower process than when you have the bees in there. So always bait new jars. All right, if you live somewhere with carpenter bees, you know the struggle is real. They can be extremely destructive, causing entire structures to collapse. They can get that bad at times. So start working on them ahead of time. And for all the people that's curious, no, this is not catching your honeybees and other things. All you typically find in here is your carpenter bee, the one that's quite destructive. All right, the other video was doing well, and I thought I would let y'all know about all the tips and tricks I've learned over the last year of using these for trapping. It really does make a big improvement. We'll catch you on the next video.